Hey everybody, it is Troy. This is Roadside RC, and it is finally the time for us to make modifications to our Sakura D5S rear-wheel drive drift car. So as you guys know, if you follow the channel, really enjoyed this chassis. So I started out my RC drift life with an MST RMX. Really enjoyed that car. When the Sakura came out, it was one of those like, well, it's rear motor and it was really cheap. The initial purchase price of this chassis was like $100. I was like, well, I'll just swap over all my stuff. We'll build it out. We'll see how it goes. And if I'm honest, because it was so cheap, I really assumed it'd be bad. And the truth is, I have actually really enjoyed this car. I have my hobby wing set up in here, 10.5 turn motor. We got our Futaba controller, Futaba gyro, Rev D servo. Have really enjoyed this. And even though I recognize that like some of the stuff like how stiff the front suspension is probably not ideal, I've never changed any of this stuff because it's always drifted so good. Like, I didn't have any complaints while driving it that made me say like, I want to change something. But now is something. So what we have here is from Mutiny Manufacturing, Adrian. You'll see him on the Sakura D5 Facebook groups, places like that. He's been very busy 3D printing a whole slew of things for this vehicle. We have camber and toe plates, which I think are actually really awesome, bolt on out here, and then you're actually able to measure using a simple ruler. You can measure the camber and toe that you have for your vehicle. That is super helpful. Actually comes with two different designs here of front shock tower. This is what's got me. This is what we're going to work on here today. He's got wire management things, different hex offsets, battery relocation kit. We've got an different ESC mount that works with a whole different up top chassis plate, and very exciting, a actual potential high motor mount for the motor that can either be in the rear or forward, can reverse the whole rear. There's a lot of stuff on here. And all of it pretty dang cheap. So I'm going to try to provide you some links down below to how you can get in touch with Adrian, either through his email or find him on Facebook, something like that, so that if you want this, you can get your hands on it. What we're doing today is we're going to be looking at these two front shock towers. So if you're familiar with the Sakura kit, you'll know that it has these cantilever inboard shocks, which have their use depending on the application. You know, if you're an open-wheeled Formula One car and you don't want your shocks dangling out there, they're great. I don't know if it actually provides a whole lot of value in this realm. And because of how they mount here, it creates a situation where it's really hard to fit larger size servos than the super low profile ones. And in fact, you know, I've got a bunch of videos on that we can share up in the corner about how you can actually fit a full size servo in here. And you can see even for this Rev D, I had to put some little metal spacers in there to clear it. Well, the whole concept here is that if you move these shocks over here to the front, you don't have to worry about that. You can put whatever servo in there that you want, completely frees up that design. He provides you with two different designs, one in here that is a bit narrower in case you're wanting to have the shocks more in, and then he has this one that gives you much more mounting choices. I believe this is the one that we will try to go with, get these shocks way on the outside. So I find this really interesting. Obviously that assembly was pretty easy, right? Pretty straightforward. You can still take this whole top plate off now. This whole top plate is actually completely redundant. It could now be completely removed and actually clean up the look of the chassis even more. I would say that I think this total, the total height here of this shock tower actually surprised me. I assumed it would be a little bit shorter. When I put my body on, my body actually sits right on the shock tower and then hits the magnets. Like if this shock tower was a millimeter taller, my body would not fit. So I would say it could almost shrink down even a little bit more. There's plenty of material here, so if you were running in one of the more inboard shock locations, you could actually probably take off just a little bit on the top there. But man, this is looking good. I love how soft the front of the car now feels with the shocks way out here, so that is very interesting. I'll probably end up having to play with a couple different of the shock locations. I thought at first that the chassis actually sat a little bit lower than it had before. I would say it feels like I'm going to have to redo the shock valving a little bit. Maybe the springs are just not quite as stiff. You notice it doesn't have a lot of rebound. All I'm doing right now is putting it in there. We're going to try it exactly as it sits. We can obviously tweak the shocks later. That's pretty awesome. I mean, honestly, I really love that I'm able to now add a little bit of preload. So what I did is I went from 0 preload to 5. 0 was too little, car was wanting to drag, nose was too down and down. Went to 5, whole suspension was overall too stiff. Backed it down to 3 millimeters preload. Love how the front of the car feels. It's nice and light, sits up, still has movement as the car goes through corners, as the car is on and off the gas. It still has movement. Works great. Very happy with about 2 to 3 millimeters. I might back it out to 2 just to see what happens. But man, just like that, now we have vertical shocks on our Sakura. It looks good. It drives good. Man, I'm happy. So Mutiny Manufacturing, Adrian, thank you very much. There is more to come. So we're going to end this here, but I am going to be studying more. I'm going to see what do we want to do with this high motor mount. We obviously have some wire management stuff that we can do here. Do I want to move that battery placement around a little bit to shift weight? You know, what is it that I want to do there? That's the kind of stuff that we got to still evaluate. I think that high motor mount, that's going to be interesting, right? Because what he's got in here is the ability to move the motor high, swap the whole gearbox, and actually get the high motor and the ESC both right here. It's almost like MST RMX-ish, you know, more mid-motor. It'd be very interesting to see how this chassis performs that way. So anyway, I really appreciate you guys. Let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, any thoughts. You know, is this something that you'd like to do to your Sakura? If you have it, I think it might be pretty good. Again, I'll try to provide all the information down below so you can get in touch with Adrian if you want a kit like this. And we'll go from there. So I'm going to keep searching. I'm going to keep looking at these other parts, figure out what we're doing next. Let me know what you're interested in. Are you interested in the high motor mount? Are you interested in the swapping of the gearbox to move it forward? What are you interested in? And we will get there. But this is part 1. So thank you very much. We'll talk to you later. Come over here, check out some of the other drift stuff that we got going on. Really enjoy the RC drifting. I've had a lot of blast. Have had a blast with it. Really like making the videos with it. So hey, check some of those out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.